I am recording this session. So there we go. So as you all are coming in, this is Becoming an Ally. So this is going to be a conversation with all of us on the role of white women in an inclusive workplace. And I am so thrilled to have with us today Karen Fleshman, who is joining us, Zulfat Suara, Brenda Gadd, and Courtney Rogers. And so you will hear more about them in just a moment. I also want to take this time while we're here just to shout out. I've been referencing the Dream Team, but I want you to see who these amazing women are that have helped to make this possible. They have been, as I like to say, rocking with me since last year. So we've gone from planning, 2 days, and none of them are here in Nashville, by the way. So let me just say that. So Ashley in the second picture is in Dallas. We have Karen that's in the third picture. She's in Baltimore. And then Sable in the last picture is in the New York, New Jersey area. And so since last year, this has gone from 2 days in person to 2 days virtual to 3 days virtual to 7 days virtual. So they've been so super flexible and so amazing. And so I just want to shout them out. This is the Dream Team. And we do have a few more that throughout the week I'll be introducing you to, but I want to say thank you so much to these amazing women who have just been like my right and left arm and all the things. So thank you all so much for being a part of this experience. So before we get started, I wanted to share just a few housekeeping updates with you, just a few things really quickly. So if you would indulge me for about 5 minutes, I want to make sure that you all are aware of everything that we have going on. So first thing, the platform. So I want to make sure that you know these live sessions are now happening on Zoom, and the recordings will show up on the platform, and they're already there. So I hope you've had a chance to take a moment to check out the replays and the on-demand sessions that are already loaded. They are already up. We've been in the chat seeing your feedback and your comments, and we definitely hope that you've had the opportunity to check out those sessions, starting with the one that was supposed to be live a couple of days ago. So this Cheers and Cheesecake Bites. So if you haven't had a chance to make your cheesecake bite, know that that session is there. You can catch the replay. Just really quickly while I have the screen up, to check all of the replays, click all. You can also select by track. So all of the business talks will show up. All of the career talks will show up. If you want to see the agenda, I know there have been some questions around the agenda, click the agenda up at the top and you'll see what's happening every day. The differentiation between what's live and what is actually a replay will actually say replay. So if it already says replay, just know that that's on demand. So you don't necessarily need to be anywhere at a certain time. You can watch that anytime. All of the lives, as we're moving forward, you'll have a calendar invite for. So hopefully we're making that really clear so you'll know how to join us. The next thing I want to share with you is the workbook. So we emailed that out. Just one heads up as well. If you aren't receiving emails from me, they'll come from Brittany@careerthrivers.com. Please check your junk mail. I know sometimes with the employer boxes, the safety firewalls are really strong. So check your junk mail. We've been sending emails every day to make sure that you stay up to date. But you'll notice that the workbook has notes and takeaways every day. So PDF Pro is a free online platform where you can literally type in your notes. So I'm going to just go back to my notes from Minda's session. They're here. So if you didn't catch her session, also the replay is available on the platform. But this platform literally allows you to type into the PDF document. It's super easy. You just upload it and boom, it's there. So if you prefer to write, totally get that. You can download it and take your notes that way as well. So I wanted to let you know about that. We talked about your junk mail folder, just making sure that I cover everything in terms of announcements. Oh, one other thing. So regarding the platform, a few of you have received invites, but you haven't accepted so you can actually log into the platform. So again, just make sure you check your junk mail folder so that you can set up your profile and access all of the information there. So without further ado, I think we're ready to head into our session. Please note that there is a chat function and we have a moderator. Danielle is in the chat, making sure that she's noting your questions. So if you have any questions throughout the session, please put them in the chat. We don't have the Q&A box because we're all together. We're gonna have a little breakout today. So excited about that. And then also at 7 p.m., we're going to do an AHA session on Instagram Live, which will allow you an opportunity to join us on IG Live and just kind of share your thoughts, your reactions to this session, and just for the conference overall. And Danielle is going to be moderating that for us over at Career Thrivers. So I think that's everything. All of my Post-it notes done. With that, Karen, I'll turn it over to you.
And share my screen. Host disabled, attendee screen sharing.
Let me take care of that for you.
Hi, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here. A couple of weeks ago, I was at Minda Hart's Women of Resilience Awards, and we had this fabulous networking session. And one of the people who I networked with was Brittany. And she said, I'm doing this conference and I would love for you to be a part of it. And that's what led to today's session. And when she said she wanted me to talk about becoming an ally, I'm like, that's something I talk about all the time. But then I said, you know, it's very cultural. And if most of the folks are going to be from Tennessee, then I think we should have some local, you know, voices so it'll be more relevant. And I'm not going to lie, here I am, Karen Fleshman, bias expert. I did have a little bias, and I kind of had some expectations in my mind of what the local allies would be like. And then I met Courtney and Brenda, and I was blown away. And then on top of it, we have Zulfat, who is just absolutely extraordinary. So I am like really thrilled to be part of this panel. And I'm going to be throwing out some questions. I don't see a chat box anywhere, but Brittany, if there's folks who want to give question or respond to what I'm saying, like the moderator can read it back. Is that right?
Sure, absolutely.
That'll be awesome. So yeah, I'm Karen Fleshman. I'm the founder of Racy Conversations. I founded my company. I'll talk a little bit about my background in a minute, but let's just dive right into what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to talk about why are allies needed, a little bit of history and demography, and we're going to hone in on tech and really look at the patterns of unfairness in tech. Then we'll get into what is and isn't allyship, and that'll be the end of my overview. And then we're going to hear from Zulfat and Brenda and Courtney. And then we're going to have a chance to talk about what we heard together and report out and do some Q&A. So I'm super excited to be here. But I don't know about you, y'all. Today is just heavy. And I think before we can get into this conversation, we need to take a moment and just pause and do a little breathing and reflection and speaking to whatever higher power you believe in to guide our country and to guide us in this time. It's just so much just terrible things going on. And I do feel that we were called to this place to be together because we are going to be the change agents that are going to turn this ship around. But with that in mind, let's just take a moment and reflect and do a couple of deep breaths in and out and really get centered in this space. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. So my company is called Racy Conversations, and I founded it in 2014. Our values are love, learning, action, and accountability. And I hope that we can practice those as the community agreements for today. I'm not going to typically I would surface community agreements, but since our time is kind of abbreviated, I just want to let everyone on this call know that we're here together in a spirit of love. We're here to learn. We're here to take action, and we're here to be accountable. Our other value is Black and Indigenous women get paid. And these are some of the organizations I've had the great pleasure of working with. And why I founded Racy Conversations. So the early part of my career was in the immigrants' rights movement. I moved to New York City to help immigrants become citizens. And then after 9/11, reports came out that said 50% of Black men in New York City don't have a job, and we have almost 200,000 young adult New Yorkers, almost entirely Black and Latinx, who are not in school, not working. And I shifted my focus over to workforce development and particularly preparing young adults of color for corporate careers in tech. And through that work, I became a mentor to hundreds of young adults. And I actually moved to the Bay Area. I relocated to San Francisco in 2012. Exact same trends here as in New York City. But I became a mentor to these young adults as they were embarking on their careers. And it was this conversation in 2014. First of all, I was fixated on Ferguson and Mike Brown. And when Darren Wilson wasn't indicted, it really pierced my heart. And then a few weeks later, I was out to brunch with these two young women, born and raised in Oakland. And they're telling me, Karen, you know, we're super grateful for our incomes and our lifestyles working at these tech companies. But being the only Black woman, as far as the eye can see, we are being subjected to nonstop abuse from our colleagues, even from our managers. And it makes it really hard for us to come into work every day. And I had that moment where I'm like, dang, you know, here I am. I thought I was helping young people by connecting them to these great incomes, but it turns out I'm actually putting them in harm's way. So what can I do to stop preparing young people for the workplace and start preparing the workplace for young people? And that's what led to Racy Conversations. And yeah, and I have a book coming out next year. It's called White Women, We Need to Talk, Doing Our Part to End Racism. And I recently had a viral tweet about hashtag Karen. I know there's a lot of irony that my name is Karen, and I got named Common Sense Karen. So my vision, you know, how many of us can remember when smoking was pervasive? Can you raise your hand if you remember when people were smoking everywhere, right? And it wasn't that long ago, right? How long ago? What? It was like 20 years ago. People smoked everywhere. And now we see signs like this one everywhere. And my vision is that in 2040, there's signs in every workplace, in every school, all across America that says, this is a harm-free campus. And we all know what that means, and we all uphold it with one another, and we eliminate harm and interpersonal harm from every institution that we are a part of, and we do it through a grassroots movement of people like you and me. So as we embark on this conversation, just take a minute and really think about who is that most marginalized person in your workplace. Just really get a visual of that person. And maybe it's you. Maybe you are the most marginalized person in the workplace. How do you feel? How does that person feel when they come into work each day? And what can you do to make them feel safe, valued, seen, heard, and respected? That is the goal of this time that we have together, is really thinking about what can I do to be an ally to that person. Let's start with a little bit of history. Why is allyship needed is very much rooted in our country's history. And I'm going to read to you the caption from this this painting. John Trumbull's 1818 oil painting, Declaration of Independence, with red dots on the faces of all the men who owned enslaved people. And I start here because I want us to get a real clear visual of how our country actually got set up and who was in the room and who made the decisions. And, you know, all these men, not only were they white, but they were all landowners, they were all Protestants, and they set everything up. They created our legal system, they created our economic system, and everything that we inherited to today. And the first group, interestingly, who they granted the right to vote to, because of course they also got to decide who got to vote, were actually men who did not own land. So white men who did not own land in most states were able to vote in the 1850s. And then of course, Black men after the Civil War, then white women in after the 19th Amendment, 1920, and then everybody else didn't really get the right to vote until 1965. So it's really only been a very short period of time that anyone other than white landowning men had any basis of power in our society. And we see that reflected as well in our workplace equality laws, right? So we have this 400-year history leading up to 1961. We finally get an executive order for affirmative action. The 1964 Civil Rights Act, fought for by Black people, that benefited all marginalized groups, including women. They weren't even going to put women in there. They just stuck it in at the very last minute. But that's the workplace protections from employment discrimination that women, that Latinos, that Asian Americans, Native Americans have today, as well as people who are older, people who are of different faiths, all originated in this 1964 Civil Rights Act that Black people gave their lives to obtain. Then in the 70s and 80s, because sexual harassment was not recognized as a form of employment discrimination that was protected, brave Black women came forward to be plaintiffs and to fight those cases that established sexual harassment as a illegal form of employment discrimination. Flash forward to 2009, you have the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act trying to make it more equitable in terms of who could sue for wage gap. And then finally in 2018, pressured by the Me Too movement, California and New York strengthened our sexual harassment laws. But I put this out there too to show that the legal framework that protects people in the workplace is relatively recent, and it's something that is under attack today, very much so, by Supreme Court decisions, by lower court decisions, and it's something that we all need to uphold and help to protect together. Bias, despite the legal protections, remains pervasive in the workplace. And what's really problematic is that in order to prove a case of workplace racial discrimination, you have to demonstrate intent. But if with this whole concept of unconscious bias, oh, you know, I just have these very deep-seated negative stereotypes that drive my behavior, but it wasn't intentional, is a way out. And so all these forms of bias remain pervasive in the workplace. And we know that when they intersect, that is when people experience even more discrimination, right? When people have multiple marginalized identities. And I'll give you a minute just to read this slide because I know there's a lot of data on there, and let me know if there's anything that's new to you or that you'd like me to talk about. And the moderator can let me know that. Is that cool? Keep rolling.
That's perfect, Karen. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yes, Kimberly Crenshaw, 1989, publishes a law review article where she introduces the term of intersectionality. And she says, you know, here we are 25 years after the Civil Rights Act, but workplace discrimination remains pervasive, and most of the benefits of these laws are going to white women and Black men who from middle class backgrounds. And Black women continue to face very intense employment discrimination at the intersection of their gender and their race. And when Black women try to assert protection from discrimination, they're told, sorry, Black people are a protected class, women are a protected class, but there's no protected class for Black women as a group. So it's very difficult for them to assert their right to workplaces free of discrimination. Meanwhile, our country is undergoing a vast demographic shift. So this slide, really important, shows a living population of the United States as of July 2018. The top bar represents folks born 1928 to 1945, the silent generation. The bottom bar is Generation Z, born 97 to 2012. And the dark green are the white people, the orange is the Latinx people, the yellow is Black or African American people, the blue is Asian American people, and the light blue is people of more than one racial identity or of a racial group that is not identified here. So we see a huge shift going on, particularly with millennials. 43% of them identify as people of color, Generation Z, 47%, until we get to 2040, when people of color will make up the majority in our society. Now, one thing this graph doesn't do a good job of showing is the relative size of these generations. So the baby boomers were replaced in 2019 by the millennials as the largest generation in both the workforce and in the electorate. Millennials and Generation Z enter the workforce with very high expectations that those in positions of authority within the workplace in particular have done their homework and understand all forms of marginalized identities. And then the people who hold positions of power in the workplace, often from my generation, I'm Gen X, or from Boomer, look at the millennials and say, what? I've never even heard of that. What are you talking about? So there's a big cultural divide and a big generational divide in the workplace going on right now. And there is a huge racial wealth gap, right? This goes back to the 2008 economic downturn that was caused by racist subprime mortgage lending targeted to Black and brown first-time home buyers. You know, there was this initiative, okay, we've had all this housing discrimination, and we're going to end that terrible legacy by encouraging Black and brown families to buy their first homes. Only when they went in to apply for a mortgage, they weren't offered a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. They were offered a subprime mortgage. And so all the money that they had so carefully saved up for those down payments, they wound up losing when their home was foreclosed upon by the same bank that had sold them a bad mortgage. And that is why between 2010 and 2013, Black and Latinx median net wealth actually declined, and why before coronavirus, Black median net wealth was projected to be zero by 2053, Latinx median net wealth projected to be zero by 2073. The reason why white people are in a different position is, again, largely tied to our home ownership. We're much more likely to own homes. We're likely to own homes in white neighborhoods that preserve their value, and in fact, their value appreciates, and we're much more likely to have 30-year fixed rate mortgages, as well as the family cushion to where if we lose our job and can't make our mortgage payment or something, we can call a relative and say, hey, can you help me out for this month? But this is the context going into coronavirus. And we know, of course, coming out of it with the CARES Act, with unemployment, with who is dying and getting sick with coronavirus, it is hugely disproportionate, impacting Black and Brown communities, and the need for allyship has never been greater. Why are allies needed? Let's look particularly to the tech industry. This is the sheer volume of white male computer science majors continues to rise. So this goes from 1991 to 1992, 2015 to 2016, who got computer science degrees. And you see the different groups broken out, but the black line on the top is white men, and they continue to attain many of those degrees. This goes back to 1991 to 92. You see who the overall population, the computer science majors, and then all degrees broken out by white, Black, Latinx, and Asian. This is what it looked like by 2015, 2016. So we see in contrast, the number of white people are starting to come down, Black, Latinx, and Asian American people are starting to come up. So there are significant numbers now of Black, Latinx, and Asian Americans attaining computer science degrees. But the median earnings in the workplace are not equitable. So this compares the median earnings of STEM majors with full-time jobs, men to women, and then between the different racial groups in the workplace. And you see that white men, Asian men are disproportionately earning more in the workplace in tech. And then there's all kinds of unfairness happening in the workplace. So I don't know, have many of you seen this graph before? I love presenting this diagram. Every time I share this on Instagram, people go, they really appreciate it. This was created by an organization in Canada. So what we see happen, the problem women of color in the workplace. You know, the white leadership claims, oh, we want to become more diverse and inclusive. We have this amazing woman of color candidate, let's bring her in. But it turns out she's not really there to change anything. She is a tokenized hire. And the reality starts to set in as she starts to point out, hey, this needs to change and this isn't right and I don't like this. Then the white leadership starts to microaggress her, injure her, until they start to blame her for causing the problem. The more she points out, hey, you are discriminating against me, the less they want to hear her until she finally exits the organization. And this is going on in tech especially, to such a degree that the Kapor Center did a tech leavers study back in 2017, where they interviewed thousands of women and people of color who had left the tech industry to understand what drove them out. And it's interesting, I'm here in San Francisco. A few years ago, I met some EEOC attorneys and I said, hey, you must be inundated. You know, the tech industry is so bad. And they told me, Karen, no one comes in to sue. Everybody just goes and gets another job. And what is causing folks to leave the workplace is unfairness, being passed over for promotion, being sexually harassed, having these encounters where they feel like they're the only one and no one in the workplace has their back, is what is driving them out of the workplace. So nearly 2/3 of tech leavers indicate that they would have stayed if the employer had fixed its culture. This is why allyship is so very, very important. Knowing that there is someone in the workplace who sees what's going on and actually takes some risk and helps you out can give someone such a feeling of being seen, heard, and that they're not they're not making this stuff up. Someone else sees it too and is willing to actually do something about it is tremendously powerful. Effective allies accelerate change. And I really love the allyship example of Megan Rapinoe. Does anyone have any thoughts on why Megan Rapinoe is such a great example of a strong ally? What are some things that Megan Rapinoe, first of all, does everyone know who Megan Rapinoe is? Let's start there.
Karen, this is Brittany. I was just about to ask you that. I'm not familiar with her,
Sure. Yeah.
so maybe you want to
So
share with us.
yes, Megan Rapinoe is the captain of the U.S. women's soccer team that last year won the World Cup in Paris. And she is just a total fierce woman. You know, she's a lesbian, and she's an outstanding advocate, not only for women and for the fair pay of women's soccer players. She's advocated very strongly to correct the pay inequality in professional soccer. But she's also was the first professional athlete to take a knee in solidarity with Colin Kaepernick. And you see her playing here. This was an exhibition game where the U.S. Women's soccer team wore soccer jerseys with the name of their shero on the back, and her shero is Audre Lorde. And I just love Megan because she's so outspoken, she's so fierce, and she's fighting for equality for everyone, not just for white women, not just for professional athletes, not just for her, not just for LGBT people, but for everyone. And I think she's a really great example of what effective allyship looks like. Now, what are some things that allies can do? How can we increase diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging? Get senior leaders' commitment to the business case, get a handle on where the company stands and why, make the current environment hospitable to all people with mandatory training, importance of diversity, and desire to retain. Invest in lateral hires of people in underrepresented groups at more senior levels within the organization. Make sure there's viable work-life programs. Expand your recruitment and don't have this fixed criteria in your head. Oh, you know, people with XYZ characteristic or people who graduated from this college are the ideal candidate. Really open your mind and say, okay, people who have this skill set or people who have these personality attributes, this is what we're looking for, but it doesn't have anything to do with what you look like or what college you went to, or even if you have a degree. And encourage healthy informal relationships between employees at all levels of the company. That is very important. We need to have those mentors. We need to have those sponsors. We need to have those opportunities to share our stories with each other so that we can be effective allies with one another. Now, allyship is not the hero's journey. I don't get to say, oh, I'm Karen and I'm an ally. The designation of ally comes from the person who I'm trying to ally with. I am their trusted sidekick. I'm not the decider, I'm not the focus. And I'm there every day, not only when it's convenient. I'm working on myself and dealing with my ugly truths. And I'm using my privilege to amplify the voice for others and intervene with my peers. When you're operating from a place of privilege, steps toward allyship, educate yourself, observe and seek guidance from the person you want to ally with. People are not a monolith, and what one person may want you to do may be very different from what someone else wants you to do. Convey respect in every interaction. Don't be replicating the same kind of harm the person is already experiencing. Listen, don't judge, be open-minded, be respectful. Do not seek rewards or recognition. Again, this is not about you. And you're gonna fall down 10 times, but get up 11. Because you will make a lot of mistakes on this journey. I still do to this day. And when I make a mistake, when someone points it out to me, I say, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out to me. And I'm gonna work on correcting it, not get all defensive and flee the scene. Allies are not an identity. but it's a lifelong process of building relationships based in trust. It's not self-defined. I can't say I'm an ally. It's not about me, and it's certainly not about saving anyone. It's about being there and using my privilege to help somebody in a particular way that they want me to do, not something I decide. When people point out you're screwing up, don't become defensive. Say thank you. And a great framework when you have to have those conversations with your peers is to say, you know, I used to think that was okay too. Then I learned how harmful it was, and now I don't think that way anymore. This is a great way to bring someone along your journey without sounding sanctimonious or judgmental. With that said, thank you so much for listening to my overview. We now have the really exciting part where we get to hear from the actual women doing this work on the ground. And I have to say, all three of these women are extraordinary leaders. And one of the things that stands out to me the most is that all three of them are not only leading in their work life and in their family life, but they are leading in the public sphere. And let's be honest, folks, the only way we're really going to change things and make them more fair is if we get more bold women in decision-making and policy-setting positions. And all three of these women have put themselves in that position, which is extremely vulnerable. It is extremely hard to do that as a woman. And it's especially extremely hard to do it as a Muslim woman, as a Nigerian immigrant woman. And I am so delighted to introduce Zulfat Swara, who's going to give our first lightning talk today. Zulfat is a CPA, and she is councilwoman at large for Nashville, Tennessee. She is the first Muslim in the Metro Council. She is the first Muslim woman elected to public office in the state of Tennessee, and she's the first Nigerian American woman elected to public office. In addition to her policy setting role, she's an assistant controller in a college. She has a CPA. She's been married for 30 years and has 5 children. And I have to say, again, back to the bias point, whenever there's Nigerian Americans involved, I have to say my expectations are just a little higher. And I'm just so delighted to introduce Zulfat, who's going to talk about connecting with allies when you're the only in the room.
Awesome. Karen, if you would take your screen share off, and then I will be sure to pin Zulfat's video. Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thanks, Brittany, for putting this awesome panel together. It's a pleasure to meet Karen, talk about being blown away with what you've done and what you're talking about. It's my first time, and I can tell you that I'm going to want to read more because everything that you're saying, I'm like, yeah. So this is amazing. And Brenda and Courtney I've known for a number of years. My Shiro's doing amazing work here in Tennessee. And so to be on the panel with all of you is incredible. And so for me, what I wanted to talk about is being on the receiving end of that allyship. When I did my campaign, because I ran at large, and I was telling everyone that we have a metro government, which is the city and the county combined. In order to do at large, everyone was telling me I'm going to need about 35 to 50,000 votes. As an immigrant, a Muslim, a woman, an African American, talk about multiple strikes, right? It's not supposed to happen. But we were able to get about 34,000 votes in order to be elected. And so people are asking, how did you do that? How did you get people to stand with you? So what I wanted to talk about is, as somebody who is a minority in almost every place that I find myself. How am I able to find allies? How am I able to find support wherever I am? And hopefully be able to share with some of you some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. The first thing that I wanted to do, as I was thinking about this topic yesterday, I have my kitchen cabinets, my kids, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to be talking about the lesson that I learned from my campaign and how to be an ally. And my kids were like, how is that allyship? I mean, the people that voted for you are expecting something from you. They have something to gain from it. So they're not being an ally, they're voting for their own self-interest. I was like, huh, okay, I guess spending all that money on training those kids has value. And so I think it's very important, and they make a valuable point, that we have to differentiate allyship with partnership. And I think when you can, try to use the partnership mode first. Because when you can tie the need to something that benefits someone, there's a very good chance they will support you. So we're talking about equal pay. Okay, we want equal pay. Yes, yes, I do want equal pay. But it's not just for me, it's going to benefit you as well. When Megan was talking about equal pay within the sporting realm, she pulled in people in basketball, she put in other female athletes because they are people that will benefit from it as well. And so every time you find yourself in a position, try to determine, can I find partners, people that have something to gain, people that can also benefit from this? I'll give you an example. When we were looking at the anti-Sharia bill in Nashville, that is a bill that was going to impact how I practice my religion in the state of Tennessee. Some of our allies were the Jewish community, to be able to say, yes, this is about being a Muslim now, right? But if this does pass, guess what? They might come for the Jews next. And so you have something to gain in being able to say, we don't want something like this happening. You're talking about women's rights. You're talking about the right to be able to make a decision about your body. Well, the state can do that today. What else would they try to do tomorrow? In that case, it's about a partnership. And so that is the first place I will ask everybody to go to. Now, when it comes to actually being on the receiving end of an ally, I want to break down into two sections. Number one, your expectations of yourself, and then your expectations of your ally, right? The first thing you have to do for yourself, I believe, is confidence. You have to know who you are. You have to be able to believe in yourself and what you're fighting for before you can ask somebody else to come and fight it for you. Because here's the deal, if you don't know what it is that you want, then somebody else can come and redefine what it is that you're fighting for. Your ally can change the narrative to what they think you should be fighting for. And we've seen this. I remember speaking at the Women's March one year, and somebody was saying, why do we have a Muslim here? And I always tell everybody we have to be very careful. People throw around the word feminist, right? But you cannot be a feminist and tell me how to lead my own life. You cannot say I'm a feminist, but you can cover the way you cover. A feminist means that I can do whatever I choose to do. And you have to respect my right to do what I believe is right for me. And so people have to know who they are. And people have to have that confidence to say, this is the fight. Can you join me in this fight? That's the first thing. Your confidence matters a lot. The second thing is, which is tied to that as well, you have to have knowledge of what you're fighting for. Like I said, it makes it easy for you to bring other people in to be able to say, hey, this is what this means. This is how I want to address it. This is what I think we should be doing. And I think those are things that, as an individual, asking for somebody to support me to be able to say, look, my workplace is not allowing me to pray. For example, I need you to come and talk to management about this for me. But it would help if I can come in and say, hey, I have a constitutional right to be able to do this. This is what it says, and this is how we can frame the argument. Now, being able to do that when somebody has come to speak for you, and I've seen it happen. Karen was talking about, as an ally, you have to defer to the people to ask them how they need help. That's what that means. So I can say, this is what I want to talk to management about. This is an area that I can handle. This is what you can do for me. Everybody knows I can speak. We can be here till midnight if you allow me to keep going. I can write. When my kids read some of the things that I write, they'll be like, oh my God, you write like you speak, right? And so I need an ally that can actually put what I'm saying in writing, do an editorial for me. That's where I need help. taking what I know to be able to do that. The other thing that I also want to share is so you have confidence, you have a knowledge of what you want to fight for. You should be ready to ask for help. It's okay because we all have limitation. Like I said, there's some things that I do well. There's some things that Brenda does well. Courtney brings a whole lot of different attributes to the table. Karen, oh my God, wrote a book, right? And so being able to say, look, ladies, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what is happening at my job. This is what is happening at my wherever you need help with. It's okay to ask for help. And so be ready to be able to ask people that you think can help your cause. That is very important. The other thing that I think is important when looking for an ally is you have to know the people. You have to be very selective. Just because somebody is white doesn't mean that they're an ally. Just because somebody is black doesn't mean they're an ally, right? So you have to know the people, and you know that by having a relationship with people. Something that I find out is that usually when I ask for help, the first people that come calling are the people that knows me first. It makes the job a whole lot easier. And they knew me because we have a relationship. So you have your confidence, you have a knowledge of what you want to talk about, you're not shy to ask for help, and also you have a relationship. Now, how do you build that relationship? A good way is to be an ally also. I think that one of the things Karen was talking about is when she was talking about Megan, look at all the different things that she's done. And because she's been an ally to so many people in different situations, if she calls for help, she already has an army behind her. And so for me, when I started doing advocacy 20 years ago, it wasn't a Muslim issue. Actually, I started out with business and professional women on women's rights. Equal pay is something that I've been talking about forever. Then I'm with the political caucus. How do we get women elected into office? My advocacy in the Muslim community started maybe 11 years ago with the anti-Sharia bill. But when I went to the Capitol to talk about the anti-Sharia bill, most of those legislators already knew me. They know who I am because I've been coming before. And when I decided that we're going to go and I need people to go with me, the first person that stood up was my state representative, Representative Johnny Shaw, because he knew me from my days of advocacy, because he knew me from town. And he knows that when I start up to fight, I'm fighting for something that I believe in. Never heard me talk about being a Muslim before. It's never been an issue, but now it is. And so he was the only legislator that actually met the Muslim community when they came to the Capitol. He addressed about 500 of us, and he was the only one bold enough to do that. And he said it was because of my relationship with her. And so having a relationship, not just focusing on what benefits you, wanting everybody to support what benefits you, wanting everybody to support your cause. But then when people call, you know where to be found. Well, maybe they'll come this time. And then the next time you call, well, you'll be there by yourself. And so those are the things that I think for yourself, you need to be able to do. You need to be able to, your characteristics, some things that I've found along the way that has allowed me to be able to build that coalition and to be able to have a lot of support. Now, on the other side, with the people that are actually going to be your ally, there are a couple of things that I think it's very important to note. One, honest communication, right? We're talking about allies have to do what they're told. Allies do not have to be heroes. Allies have, but if you did not tell them where you need help, you cannot get mad that somebody is taking over. And so you have to be able to have that conversation to say, Brittany, I need your help on this, but I don't need you talking. I can stand in front of the mic by myself. I can fight my own fight, honey. But you stand behind me and be writing the names of everybody that is there because I need that list. That's where I need you. That's what honest communication is. Honest communication also comes in when Brittany is now doing something else that I did not ask her to do. I should be able to call Brittany and say, thank you, Brittany. I'm so glad you're here. By the way, your seat is in the back. And you should be able to have that conversation in a very nice manner. I'm not saying yelled and scream, but to be able to say, thank you so much. I appreciate you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing already, but what you're doing, I can do, right? And there's no point in duplicating our efforts. Why don't we combine all our traits? Why don't we look at what we each bring to the conversation so that we can maximize the outcome of what we're trying to do? That's why that honest conversation is important. I've seen situations where that is missing. And guess what? Everybody's mad at everybody. One side is, I'm doing everything that I can. I'm only trying to help her. Why is she mad at me? And then on the other hand, I'm here thinking, who does she think she is? What a privilege. Why is she taking over my show? It's my show. But we're not having that communication. We're not talking to each other. There's already friction. That's a bad place to start. You get in front of people to talk about something, and you're not even together. Your case is already weak because whoever you're supposed to be in front of can sense that you all are not even together. Right? We're sitting across the board trying to make a point, and we're rolling our eyes at each other. We've already messed up our case. And so having that open and honest communication is very important. The other thing that I also think is important is patience. I think when people are out to help, I'll use a case. There was a time, there's a lot of Islamophobia happening in this country. And every time something happens, people step up and wants to help. And I appreciate everyone for always doing that because we need those allies. But here's the deal. There was a situation where not too long ago, some allies decided they want to put on the head coverings and see what it's like to be treated as a Muslim. Well, that created two reactions. There were people in the Muslim community that was like, oh, thank you for doing that. Now you see how I feel. But there were also people that believe that the culture is being co-opted. So putting it on for a day and you think you know how I feel, putting it on when if somebody look at you in a bad way, you can quickly take it off and you think that's my life. And so there was some friction there. And my take has always been, look, folks, we're all on the same page. I applaud the people that put it on. I think that's very brave for them to do that. And I understand the people that are upset because that's their life as well. But we have to be very patient with each other. We have to understand that everybody is trying to help. And some of these situations are very fluid, right? It's something that we've never been in before. My experience as a Black woman dealing with racism is similar, but sometimes it's different as a Muslim woman. I'm in a room talking to African Americans and they cannot understand what I'm talking about as a Muslim, even though I'm African American. I'm in a room talking to Muslims and they don't understand what it is like to be Black in America, right? Because everybody's issue is different, right? So that's why we have to be very patient with each other. And like Karen said, I'm going to bring us back to it. You know, it's not about being a hero. This is not a social justice Olympics, right? My cause is better than your cause. I mean, my idea, what I'm fighting for, is more important than yours. I told everyone at a speech one year, I said, you know, the number one rule for intersectionality is that you cannot, under any circumstances, marginalize somebody who's already marginalized. And we do that. We do that. Sometimes we are so passionate about what is important to us, we forget that other people are struggling to the same thing too. So we have to be patient in this place. We have to be patient with ourselves. We have to be patient with our ally. We have to be patient with everybody that we're dealing with. I don't know how much time I have. Like I said, I can speak forever, but I'm not timing myself. I should.
So that was fantastic.
Uh,
This is Brittany. I was saying that was fantastic, and I was sitting here having flashbacks. I guess a little teaser if you're not in Nashville and you don't know, but BC, as I like to say, before COVID, Zulfat and I were working together on her TED Talk for TEDx Nashville. So that is still forthcoming. So make sure you stay tuned to TEDx Nashville because we're going to make that happen. But you are just so incredible, so amazing. And in the chat, we have so much like. Yeah, I feel like if we were in a room together, you'd have like hands flying, you'd have like hands snapping. You know, I love that. No oppression Olympics, no allyship Olympics. So thank you so much for being here. So we're gonna move to our next panelist, but please stay tuned because each of our panelists will be leading a breakout session. And so we really want to get in to talk about like, what does this actually look like in the workplace, in business, and what is our role in all of it? So with that, Karen, I'll turn it back over to you to move to our next panelist. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zulfa. I loved your points. And we have to be patient with each other. We have to get to know each other. you know, here in the Bay Area, we always want to protest everything. We're constantly going to protest this, protest that. I'm like, we need to sit down in a room and eat together and like get to know each other. Then we can go to the protest, right? But this is fantastic. It is my distinct honor to introduce our next lightning talk by Brenda Gadd. Brenda has spent 2 decades influencing policy. She's led national, state, and local political and issue-based campaigns. She's the founder and president of Rethink Public Strategies, focused on equity and justice in advocacy and advocacy strategy decision-making. She's an advocate for gender and racial equity and justice, and learning how to do the work in her volunteerism, professional, and personal life every day. She calls Nashville, Tennessee home.
Hi. Hi there. I just was going to say I could listen to Zulfat speak for another hour. I've got the time. I'm good. So I'm happy to mute myself and listen more. But Brittany and Karen, let me ask you, you've done such a good job, and I'm really appreciative for both of you having me here and to be here with Courtney and everyone else, and a few names on the call that I see that are here that I know. Let me ask you very briefly, you've already prepped me, but how long do you want me to talk? Just a couple of minutes?
Yeah, so I think we have
just
room.
A little intro, just a minute. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you want to take 5 minutes, and then Courtney will take 5, and then we can start our breakout rooms.
That's perfect. And I can take less than that. Let me just tell you my first of all, I think Karen framed this, and Zulfat talked about this being asked, or someone else calling you an ally. And I'll tell you, Brittany, when you reached out to me, I saw the email. My immediate response was, I'm not an expert. I could never tell somebody if I'm doing it right, or what I'm doing. And I'm not one, I've never called myself that. And I felt very uncomfortable. But at the same time, if you ask me to do anything, I'm going to say yes. Because because it's you. So getting just to be a part of this is very, very moving. But, you know, there were a few things there. Just my own journey. One of the things I had meant to put behind me was some yellow roses, but my husband had gotten me some yellow roses, and they, every time I see a yellow rose, it reminds me of a specific thing. It's a symbol for the women's suffrage and those who were going to go in and vote, and which side they were going to vote on, specifically in Tennessee when it was ratifying. And I think of that, and I think, and looking at the history of Black women, African-American women, formerly families and family members of themselves not formerly enslaved, fought to have that, and this vote was ratified for white women. And it did not include every woman and every woman that fought for that. And that happened here in Tennessee and here in Nashville. And every time I see yellow roses, I know, because I know the story, I know there's more there, and it makes me more mindful and thoughtful. So I say that to say that's a story I didn't know just more than a few years ago. And so when I say learning every day, I mean learning every day. I'm so glad we took a moment of pause, and others are going to be so much more articulate. So, but I'm so glad we took a moment of pause at the beginning of this, because seeing, first of all, I had this wonderful thing to be away from family with family on Monday, not to be away from my social media, and to know I could come back on Tuesday, open up my social media, and I could post something about my family and not be personally impacted by, you know, even thinking I was going to see someone that looked like me that was going to be murdered by police that I would personally call to ask for protection. And so on the same day I see that and catch up, I see this video of Amy Cooper, who is all of us white women. And at some point, it is. I watched it and I watched it and I watched it again. Christian Cooper videoing her. His only defense was that video. And I closed my eyes and I listened to her voice as she created this entire scenario that an African-American man was threatening her life, and she elevated her voice to tap into this racist culture and what we built of how to fear Black men, and basically to put them in their place. And that is exactly those two things happening with video sharing about the same time. To me, it was the thing that I saw. I was like, this is what leads to this. So in preparing, just in trying to gather myself and thoughts, most of the day, just appreciative that we gave space, and hopefully also is something I've learned, which I have not done in the past in the workplace, which is to give space in these traumatic events in the workspace, in the volunteer. I sit on probably too many volunteer boards, but where I have a place, actually I don't, because I enjoy that work. So, but where I have that chance to be, to in a breakfast club this morning, to absolutely in my introduction to say and speak up, because I learned it from someone else, and I'm trying to educate myself, and I think I'm over 5 minutes, so I'm going to wrap up. But that's the space that I'm learning that I should speak up at. I know Courtney's got one more say, so I'm just talking, and I'm going to continue to talk, so I'm just going to wrap it up, Brittany.
Brenda,
I'm staring at your face.
Perfect. And I think you really tapped into what all of us feel like. None of us are experts. Like, I feel that all the time. I'm like, yes, I have a certification in diversity and inclusion and building a culture of belonging at a workplace, but like, I'm no expert in that. So we're always on this continuous improvement journey. And I think you hit on that so beautifully. And I think what you mentioned about just actionable, seemingly small things that we can do is so powerful. I want to share with everyone a post from a friend that I used to run with that her manager sent her. She copied and pasted the email that she was sent today going into the workplace, completely unexpected. 2-sentence email. It says this: I saw the news last night. Let me know if you need to take some time to process today, period. And I read that and I had chills, and it was such a moment of just, and this is a Black woman, she works at Vanderbilt, but her manager sent her that super simple 2-sentence email in acknowledgement that, hey, this happens and this may be impacting you in the workplace. If you need some time off today, or if you need to stop early, totally fine to do that. And I thought it was just such a beautiful example of what empathy and leadership looks like. So Karen, I'll turn it back over to you to introduce Courtney, and we look forward to hearing more from Courtney's lightning talk.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was beautiful, Brenda. And yes, you are an expert. Never deny your expertness. We're all experts in our lived experience. Courtney Rogers is a Navy veteran. Thank you for your service. A technology and marketing executive with a passion for community advocacy. She ran an inspiring campaign for the Tennessee State Legislature in 2016 that serves as the foundation for her ongoing commitment in motivating and recruiting progressive women to run for public office. Currently, Courtney serves as an officer in the Williamson County Democratic Party, and she loves cheeseburgers, wearing yoga pants without actually doing yoga, and is inspired by her 12-year-old daughter daily to fight for those who need it the most. Thank you so much for joining us, Courtney.
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everybody. I am wearing yoga pants and I'm not doing yoga. So yes, this is just an incredible opportunity. And I just wanted to share a little bit of my story and let you know that I'm honored to be asked to be here, but I think I felt very similar to Brenda, was like, oh, I'm excited that I was asked to be here as an ally, but I have so much to learn. But I think it's important that we share that so that other people can learn. I was raised in a conservative Southern military Christian bubble. Everyone I hung out with looked like me. I didn't have any non-white friends in school. I went to college in Mississippi, and all of my friends there also looked like me. And I can honestly tell you that I never thought twice about it. I was very judgmental, and I was an insecure person, and I was basically faking it. I was a naval officer during Operation Enduring Freedom after 9/11, and I led a division of sailors who didn't all look like me, but I still never took the time to understand what it may feel like to walk through the world as anything but white. I got out of the Navy to get.
Courtney, are you there? I think you may have cut out. I'm going to unpin her video there just to see if she, oh, there she is. Okay, I think she's still talking. Oh my goodness. Okay, there we go.
And to her fellow humans. Therapy saved my life. I'm getting emotional, but I'm just going to go with it. Therapy saved my life, along with anxiety medicine that I still take daily. Once I understood that my insecurity was leading me to be hateful and judgmental, I started reading about racism, specifically around the history of our country. And I think Karen did an excellent job of laying that foundation there.
Courtney, I think you are cutting out. Okay, we may have to come back to Courtney's
racist policies and actions of U.S. government. Brenda, I'm really glad that you brought up the conversation around Amy Cooper, because I thought.
Okay, yeah, it looks like she's having some technical difficulties with Wi-Fi, which is totally understandable now with everything and everyone being on Wi-Fi. So let's do this. Let's tap into the Karen, the breakout sessions, and
can you hear me?
Let's see. Yes, we can hear you now.
Did you not hear anything?
You cut out for maybe like 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, I just I'm trying to think. Can you still hear me?
Yes, yes. We can still hear you. We can still hear you.
All right. So basically my insecurities were leading me.
Uh-oh. It looks like you cut out again, Courtney. I hate that. Courtney has such an incredible story. So let's do this. Let's move through with the breakout sessions. We'll circle back and try to get Courtney on to share her story. If not, I know a way that we can get you her story. She's done a podcast episode with us, but we really want you to share live during the session. So Courtney, we're going to tap into the breakout sessions and then we'll come back. I want to make sure you all get the full flavor of Courtney's story because it's super, super powerful. So with that, Karen, would you put up the questions and then I will start the breakout rooms. As Karen is bringing up the questions, just a quick kind of housekeeping for technology purposes. I know everyone is probably familiar with Zoom at this point. You may or may not have experienced a breakout room. So I'm going to start the breakout rooms. We'll have 5 breakout rooms. And so that will put about 7 people in a room. And so what will happen when I press the button, the magical button here, you'll see a countdown and then you'll see a little flash. It'll look like you're going out of the meeting. You're not, you're just being put into your room. So it'll pop back up with and we're just going to do this random assortment of rooms here, but you'll have one of the panelists in each rooms with a question. So this time is really meant, as you can see here on the screen, for us to just have some conversation in smaller groups to really talk about what does this look like? So what does effective allyship look like from your perspective? In what ways do you have privilege and power? In what ways do you use that? We were talking in the prep for this, we all have privilege, some layer of privilege. So this isn't just about white privilege, whatever privilege that you believe that you have, let's have that conversation around privilege. And then what's one thing that you learned from the speakers today? And then what's one thing that you are going to you're kind of like, okay, I heard that, but I'm still kind of wrapping my mind around that. So I know that was fast, but you will have your panelists in the sessions to help to guide this conversation. So Karen, did I hit on everything?
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to create the rooms. And again, you'll see just a little blink and then you'll be in your breakout rooms. And we'll take about, we'll say 7 minutes in the breakout rooms. And make sure you hit, you'll see a little prompt, so just hit the accept to transition to your room. And we see the magic happening. Perfect.
Will I see a little prompt? Or maybe I need to.
Yeah, you may want to unshare your screen and you should see a prompt. I'm just going to double check to make sure that we have. Perfect. Courtney's in room 3. I'm going to join room 4, looks like. Breakout room 1. Okay, Karen's in room 2. So that's in room 4. Brenda's in room 5. So it looks like. Hi, everyone. Looks like I'm in breakout room 1. So let me go to gallery view so we can see everyone. So I'm just going to kind of open this up for our breakout. It looks like there are 5 of us in here, a few faces that I know. So hello to y'all, and thanks y'all for being a part of the conference. So I'm just going to throw it out there. Kind of let me know your thoughts. Kind of what did you take from the conversation? What stood out to you? Hi, Alita. Hi, Jaslyn. And you will have to come off of mute. I think you're both on mute. So just make sure to unmute.
Hey girl, hey.
Hey. I see, awesome. I see Danielle and Rose too. So y'all feel free to join us, come off mute, and let's just kind of have some conversation. So what do you ladies think about the session so far? Oh wait, Alita.
Mute.
Boom.
I'm still in work mode, so I have to send this email.
Totally get it. Totally get it.
Yeah, I'm still in work mode too. I'm like in and out because I'm on a faculty meeting call, but I'm like, hold on, I gotta wait to see what's being said.
All good. All
but,
good.
You know, I really, so excuse my dog in the background, but you know, the collaborative effort in terms of working together in allyship is really important. It rings out to me. I'm the only Black doctor in my department. And so when I'm at the table, like I know that there are people in the room that are allies, but I need them to be allies in public too. And not just after a meeting, like, oh, that was really great what you said, but us really working together in, you know, in our own meetings, but in the bigger group meetings to bring forth change, because our voices together is going to be what brings change.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for the allies to realize that they have to say something. And for me, and very similar to what she was just saying, like you sit in the room and you're like, okay, does anybody else notice I'm the only Black person in the room? Okay, is anybody else going to say anything about me being the only Black person in the room? Okay. Yeah. And it's awkward for me sometimes because my role is I'm director of diversity initiatives. So my role is to oversee diversity, but I'm the only person who can even speak on it because I'm the only diverse person in the room. Yeah. So it's for them to say something. And I kind of posted and alluded to that on my social media yesterday. Like if you, I said that, and I was very clear. I was like, this post is not for people who look like me. This is for the people who don't look like me. Yeah. You have to say something because we cannot continue to be the voice of reason. And that is where the line between empathy and sympathy lie. And you can have empathy, but if you are not sharing that empathy with other people and within your own platforms and within your own organizations, then it does nothing. Because I can sit up and talk about being Black all day because I know it, but you got to say something. So.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that comes with like, you know, there's this like fear associated with allyship sometimes, especially with white women of like, and you kind of heard it with Brenda too. It's like, you know, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to do this the wrong way. Like, you know, so there's that kind of just concern, I think. But to your point, I think like the worst is not saying anything. So like anything that you say is better than saying nothing, and just, you know, people kind of hearing that, I think is really important. So I guess in terms of, Jaslyn, you mentioned you are over diversity initiatives where you work. What has that looked like for you, I guess, in terms of just like programming?
So for me, I oversee raising money for scholarships for students of diversity. So that's my specific role. And I always find myself having to fight harder for my students. And so because I work with our alumni of diverse populations and our students directly, something that was very interesting is, so I work at a private university here in California, and the president, I put on events for our donors and our students to meet, which is something that kind of has been done differently since I've been there. And the president got up and he spoke about how great the university was and the model in which I had the program go. He originally was not coming, so I was okay with that because it's a room full of Black people, and then he's the minority because he's one of 3 white men in the whole room. And the way I had it set up was one of our professors who introduced me to a student was going to speak. The student who was actually one of my scholars was going to speak, and then her donor, who's an alumni, who's a doctor now, was going to speak. And it kind of just showed the circle of life and philanthropy in academia. And he got up and he just spoke about all these great things. And then the student comes up right behind him and talks about how she couldn't afford to be there. And if she had not had a conversation with me, she wouldn't be there. And he's, to me, it was like, this is what really happens. These are my students, is they really cannot afford to be at this $70,000 university. And many of them leave out of here with debt or can't be here.
Yeah.
And I always find myself fighting that with my counterparts. Like, my kids don't come in here with the silver spoon. They leave out of here with debt. Or I have to literally at least once a week, I have a conversation with the student and I have to tell them that they need to take a semester off because they can't afford to be here. And I said, those are some of the hardest conversations, but nobody else in this room is having those conversations because your kids aren't going through the same things because their parents send them here with Teslas. And literally our students drive Teslas, Porsches, Bentleys, like you see it on campus. And so it's hard. And for programming, I just try to always tell my kids stories as much as I can. So
I love that. Any other thoughts? We just have a few more seconds and I'm going to hit this button and it'll count us down. Any other thoughts before we head back?
Hello, Brittany. This is Rose Sharon. Hey. So I just wanted to say, sorry, I can't access my video right now. I'm actually on my phone, but this was very timely and very informative. As an African woman, more recently, I have really been taking a very conscious effort on understanding the Black experience in America, because my experience has been, I lacked a lot of background context to the African-American experience in America being African. So just as I've gone and grown in my journey in corporate America and experienced things and being able to reflect back, it's
Rose,
been nice.
we have 2 seconds. It's going to cut you off.
So thank you so much for that participation. One of the questions that I saw in the chat before we went into the small groups is, how can we give one another grace for mistakes and learning from one another? Is there anyone who would like to take a shot at answering that?
I think when I was talking about being patient, that's what I was referring to, that we have to be patient with one another, that things are fluid, they're not always the same, and to just assume that everybody meant well. And so instead of being mad and going to the other side and always thinking badly of the situation, have that communication, talk openly about it, and then I think that'll be my recommendation, that we just have patience and we have more communication with each other.
And another question I saw was the value of a sponsor/champion versus an ally.
Yeah, so I don't mind taking that one, and I'll tee it up just for the sake of time. Tomorrow, we're having a session all about that. So it's a midday session, but we're having a conversation on mentorship and sponsorship. Maddie James, she is an entrepreneur and influencer that's going to join us out of Atlanta for that conversation to kind of ground us in the mentorship conversation. And we'll kind of have a fireside chat to talk about sponsorship as well. So make sure you check that out. Briefly, I will say there is a link in the calendar invite for that live conversation. That is the TED Talk of Carla Harris. I highly recommend you watch that video. She's the best of the best at breaking down the differences between sponsorship and mentorship. And what I love about her TED Talk is that she actually gives you language for how to ask for the mentorship and the sponsorship. So make sure you check that out and then join us for the conversation on tomorrow. It's going to be really, really powerful. Courtney, I see that you're on. I wanted to see if we could get your story in here. Really want to
Sure.
hear from you. And Courtney, just one thing that may help, I think your bandwidth is a little low. If you want to turn off your video, we can still hear you, and I'll put us back in gallery mode. That may help with your internet connection for this.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop my video. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it was fine in the breakout session. So I will leave you with what I call my truths of allyship. And these are recommendations. Bottom line is I've got a lot to learn. But we've got a lot of work to do. So these are my truths. Racism is taught, and it's up to us as white people to educate ourselves and our fellow white people on how to fix it. Understand what white privilege is and start explaining it to your fellow white friends. As a white woman, it's my responsibility to listen to our Black and brown brothers.
Courtney, I think you may have cut out. So let's do this, because this week is all about flexibility, right? Like, ooh, tech has been
racism.
Oh, okay. Courtney, let's do this, because I really, really, really want people to get the full context of your story and also these tips. So if you're
I'm gonna send it to you.
Will you record a video and then I'll upload it to the platform? That way people can get the full story and then also the tips as well.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. So I know we had a few more questions, or a few questions in our breakout session, Karen, that came up that I'm curious to get the group's feedback on. So we were having this conversation around just kind of getting back to kind of this topic around, okay, well, like, what is the role of white women in this conversation? And the reason why we, just to kind of lay the context too, in terms of the title, Karen did a great job of like bringing us up on the history. But one of the things when you look into D&I research, diversity and inclusion, I keep throwing that out, like we're all on the same page there, but diversity and inclusion, I being, or E being equity, and then sometimes you'll see B there, meaning belonging. The research states that diversity and inclusion efforts at organizations, particularly in corporate America, have largely benefited white women. So you heard this a little bit in Minda's session, but just meaning that when we paint this broad brush of equal pay for women, or diversity and inclusion for women, that oftentimes Black and brown women are left out of that equation relative to that intersectionality that Karen was talking about. So that's why we then kind of broach this topic of, well, what is the role then of white women who are benefiting from diversity, but still not seeing any primary diversity or diversity that you can see difference when you walk into the workplace? And one of the questions that came up in our session was, well, why don't white women speak up? Like, even if you have this sense of like, I don't know what to say, saying nothing is worse than saying something wrong. So I don't know if I wanted to throw that out here to the group in terms of like, how do you navigate that in your spaces, white, Black, or brown, relative to just this fear of like not wanting to speak up for fear of not saying the right thing, but knowing that not speaking is worse?
Yeah, in my research for my book, I really wanted to understand, well, why are white women calling the cops on an 8-year-old girl for selling water without a permit? Like, what is the origin of that? And it goes back to 1619 and the role of white women in slavery and the whole genocide of Native Americans. We have been upholding the power of white men from the very beginning of this country. That's what we were brought to this country to do. And we have never confronted our past and really transformed. And now we're in the workplace and we're replicating those same behaviors from back then. And I talk about this a lot, like from white men in the workplace, I've experienced sexual harassment, wage gap, glass ceiling. But the most harmful behavior I've experienced at work came from white women who were senior to me in the organization and perceived me as some kind of threat to their proximity to the white men in power, and would use the things that I told them in confidence to undermine me in ways that, like, I had to go to therapy to like recover from these things. Like, these women really took me down. So I think there's a lot, like, white women have a lot of unpacking to do of our, both the trauma that we have inflicted on others and the trauma that has been inflicted on us. Because I think that the reason why our behavior is so dysfunctional is very much rooted in the harm that we've experienced. And many of us don't even acknowledge that we have had that harmful experience. So I'm really grateful when I see white women like Courtney and like Brenda, who are boldly stepping forward and saying, you know what, I am going in a different direction than the way I was raised. And I'm gonna break this thing, because it's a generational thing. And it very much happens with mothers. You know, as a mother, I know I have until my kids are 8 to frame their understanding of the world. And what they hear from me, it doesn't matter. What they see me do is what is going to lead to their behavior for the rest of their life. So I think there's a huge reckoning that has to take place among white women.
That's awesome. I love Ashley in the comments. She says, yes, I literally repeat to myself, my comfort matters less here. Speaking out matters more. That is so good. So, so good. Thank you for sharing that, Courtney. Stacy says, speak up even when your voice shakes. Good. That's good. Courtney put in the chat, speak up when you see or hear someone being racist, always. Don't politely giggle at your racist uncle at Thanksgiving. Correct your coworker. Check yourself. Understand cultural appropriation and adjust accordingly. Come on, okay? So good. Well, thank you so much, you all. I know we're at time. If you have 3 minutes to stay on really quick, I want to just share our surprise with you today. So we actually have a live illustrator for our live sessions starting today. And so Ayumi is on, and so I am going to have her share her screen. She was capturing the conversation today, and yeah, Courtney says, I love Ayumi, she's amazing. And so Ayumi is going to share with us what she captured from the conversation, and then if you are one of our VIP ticket holders, we will be sharing prints with you. Everyone else will share a digital copy of all of this after the conference is over. Ayumi likes to put her final touches on all of the illustrations, but it's just a way for you to kind of just remember the key talking points around this conversation, and really have a reference for how you can carry this forward and also perhaps share with your coworkers as well. So yes, so let me give Ayumi share access really quickly, and you should have that co-host button now to share your notes with us. As she's pulling that up, nope, because she's pulled it up. So there it is. So awesome.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah, I see Courtney, we've got a lot of work to do. Allyship is not an identity from Zolfat. That was so good. Be patient, more communication, effectively accelerate change. I love that. I love that. So yes, we'll make sure that you all have a copy of this from our conversation today. And of course, if you didn't get to take notes, here are your notes, but we hope you also have the workbook as well. So thank you, Ayumi, for that. This is awesome. Really awesome. A few more quick things. So one, we have a carryover session on Instagram. So Danielle will be over there at Career Thrivers, carrying on the conversation and also giving you an opportunity to join her on camera and just kind of share your thoughts. What are your reactions from this? What do you want to carry over and pass on to friends, family, coworkers? We'll be having that again. That'll start at 7 p.m. on Instagram Live. So take some time, like, you know, I know sometimes you got to like decompress after sessions like this, write down some notes, and then join us over there at 7 o'clock. I also want to share just really quickly again, just to make sure whether you're joining us live or on the replay, that you are familiar with the platform. So I'm on the agenda tab for today. I want to alert you to an amazing session that is here for you on demand. It's the restorative stretching and mindfulness session with affirmations. And so Kim and Claude from Abundant Life Adventure Club, that video is live. I see Nikita's already checked it out and put some feedback in the chat. So make sure you check that out. It is there for you on the platform. There's also a really amazing session from Sable, from our dream team. She's talking about navigating career transitions. And I don't know about you, but we're all in some phase of a career transition right now. So make sure you check out her session. It is available for you on demand. And you will also see, whoops, let me go back to May 27th. You'll also see this session. So once we wrap up here, we'll upload that, expect that tomorrow. And then last but not least, two quick changes. Or two quick things to alert you on. One, this cultural experience. So Fisk University is one of our HBCUs here in Nashville. And so they have beautiful art galleries on their campus. So we've partnered with Urbanite to bring that to you in this Nashville's Not Just Country series. So make sure you check that out. You'll get a video, cultural excursion through the art galleries, and then the Uncertain to Unstoppable session will be ready for you at 8 p.m. So I know some of you were looking for that. I'm excited to share that with you. I'll be uploading that for you, and it'll be ready for you at 8. So again, your agenda's here, but if you're like, Brittany, I need to see it, I need to print it out, it's in your workbook. So the workbook that you got the link to in your email on yesterday has all of the sessions laid out for you, both the live agenda as well as the on-demand sessions. And so again, all of that is in the workbook. And then you also have areas for you to take notes. If you're making connections, I hope that you are. Even through this on the platform, you can connect with people there. And there are also some other ways that you can really get serious about what are you going to do with all of this insight and information, putting some action behind those intentions. So those are our announcements. Oh, one more thing to expect in your email before I let you go. Mentors. So our mentor meetup day starts tomorrow. So earlier today, we sent our mentors, all of the attendees that requested a time. We still have some extra spots. So if you're watching this live or if you're watching this on demand and you want to sign up with a mentor, please click the link in the email from yesterday. It's a quick, like 2-minute form, so we can match you with the person that can answer the questions that you have. But we do have mentors with more availability, so that will be there for you. And that's happening on tomorrow. So stay tuned to your inbox. If you're not seeing my emails, please check your junk mail. It's Brittany@careerthrivers.com, and make sure you, whatever you have to do with the settings to make sure that comes to your inbox so you see it. All of the updates will be there, and we'll be sending out an email tonight as well. All right. Any other questions, thoughts before we hop on over to Instagram at 7? All right. Awesome. Monica says, great session. Thank you so much, ladies. Brenda, Karen, Zolfat. Thank you so much, Courtney. And Courtney's going to share that video with us, and we'll post it on the platform. Thank you, ladies, so much for tonight. Take care.